Well, it's 2, and the new coach on Montlake is Jedd Fisch, and he takes a few minutes to join us right now. Good morning, Jedd. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
How's it feel? The two coaches of the two most prominent programs in Seattle, both you and Mike Macdonald, never played college football. And both of you started an exact same journey, being a GA at the university that you attended and fell in love with the game. Did you realize you and Mike share that common trait?
I did. Mike and I have known each other for a long time, and I remember us having lunch together at the Combine about, 12, 15 years ago when we were both young coaches and talking about that exact same thing and the journey and of going through it in a unique manner, but rooting each other on the whole time. And he and I have stayed in touch throughout the last few years, so it's pretty amazing that we're both here today.
Well, we're going to make this interview about you, but since you just dropped that bit of knowledge on us, give us a moment or two to follow up on that. Tell us more about Mike Macdonald, and have you guys chatted in the last week or two?
Sure. Yeah, I talked to Mike Friday before he got the job, and we just talked for a few minutes and just caught up on a couple things. And obviously I was wishing him well and hoping that he was going to be here. So then when he got the job, I said, hey, welcome to Seattle. I'm allowed to say that because I was 2 weeks earlier than him, so I acted like I was the host. And but I think the Seahawks hit a home run with Mike. Obviously, to follow a Hall of Famer is not easy to do. Coach Carroll's, my feelings on Coach Carroll, the best of the best. So, but I'm just excited for Mike, excited to see what he does with his staff, and really hopeful that we could have a great partnership between the two programs and be able to really utilize their resources, and hopefully they can use ours as well.
We just played some sound of John Schneider that I loved. Salk heard it yesterday. He was at the presser, and I think it plays right up into this conversation right here. The difference between a learning networker and a climbing networker. That was John Schneider's words, the GM, as he hired Mike. And you see that in the profession. I was telling some stories to Salk about guys that are gurus and brand themselves and love to be climbing the ladder and climbing through those networks versus learning and connecting and networking in a learning kind of way. Once again, you and Mike kind of share a trait along those lines, you think, Jedd?
Yeah, I think I didn't hear John say that. I was out running around trying to get players. So I was everywhere in the recruiting trail. But I think that's a great way to put it. And I think so many people misinterpret moves or misinterpret job changes or job decisions for the word climbing rather than learning. And I certainly have made sure that every decision that I made was not based on the next move to be able to say I have one more rung in the ladder, but to say, who could I go learn from? So when I do get a chance to run my own program, could we make it great? And when I chose to move to Seattle from the University of Minnesota, some would say, why would you go from being an offensive coordinator to being a quarterback coach? Well, the answer was really two words, and it was Pete Carroll. And I could give you 3 or 4 different examples of moves that I've made that I've asked my family to move across the country or from the south to the north or the east to the west, whatever it might have been. And all of it was to hopefully be in a position today, like being the head coach at University of Washington and sitting here with a long-term contract, to be able to say, what is this program going to look like? How do we win a championship? And how are we able to be in position to take this team to the Big Ten and sustain success?
Your family just roll your eyes at you at this point when you say, hey, I'm thinking about us moving again. They're like, oh, come on, Dad. Really? Like, what is the reaction? You have kids? What is their reaction?
Like you, Salk, he's got 2 daughters, so you guys are in the same boat.
Well, mine roll their eyes at me. I can only imagine. I don't even move them across the country. What do yours do?
Normally we have normally the issue, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. This time around, this was a little bit, Amber went with a very unique strategy. She called usually when we say we're having a family meeting, that's when they know something's going to happen. So we came in on Sunday morning, we got offered the job and said, we're going to have a family meeting. My oldest started crying, and Amber goes, we're not getting divorced. I go, I didn't even know that was on the table. But it was a great strategy. She's brilliant, my wife. And they're like, of course not. She goes, but we are moving.
Again.
So it's like trying to make it like a good news, bad news conversation.
Let me start with the good news, and then this won't sound nearly as bad in comparison.
Yeah.
I like that.
I'm like,
smart.
I don't know what that was, honey. I said, I don't know what that was, but okay.
You know the nice weather in Tucson? You kiss that goodbye. You're coming up north for a little while. So along those lines, as we talk about learning, when you came here to interview with the hiring group here at the University of Washington, what questions did you have for them?
Is this a trick question? Because there was no come here for an interview.
Good point.
Is one of this is the 2024 version of becoming a head coach in college. You have about a 40-minute phone conversation, and you're the head coach.
That's crazy.
The time necessary, the time allotment, they don't give you any of those opportunities like they would in the number one in the NFL when you have a whole process where there's rules and regulations and you have to announce who's getting hired and announce all the, who you're interviewing for each job, and you have to interview certain candidates. In college football right now, if you lose a coach, you don't want to lose your team along with it. So things happen really fast. I think probably what happens is as your team's winning, you start, figuring out, am I going to have to start putting a list together? I got a call Saturday afternoon at 2:30. I got on the phone for maybe an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, and then went right back to work and recruiting for Arizona and doing my job, and really didn't think much of it at that point, and then got a call at 10 o'clock at night and got offered the job. So I really don't have a lot of answers. I had a lot of questions, but it was what it was. That the number one thing I knew was going to the Big Ten, playing the power conferences. There's two conferences that are going to be the NFL here soon, and that's the Big Ten and the SEC. There's going to be two conferences that can win championships, and it's going to be the Big Ten and the SEC. And if you have a chance to coach in one of those two conferences, especially at the one that just won played in the national championship, you don't have an option in this profession other than to say yes. And this is what our dreams are. Our dream is to win and compete in the national championship. So really, the only answer was yes when they offered the job.
Do you think it was a little easier because of that experience in 2010 of living in the Pacific Northwest? A little easier because you've competed and even did last year against this Washington team, and you knew so much and had such an institutional knowledge about the job?
I think, played them twice, 3 times actually when I was at UCLA also, living in Seattle with the Seahawks. But, Brock, for us, for my family and I, we're football junkies and truly love college football. So you don't not know about UW. You don't not know about everything from, 91, I was a freshman in high school. But, I was a football junkie then. And obviously from the national championships then to all the conference championships to what Chris Peterson did here. I worked for Dom Capers, so I heard about Don James forever. I worked for Jim Mora, heard about University of Washington forever. So I had the knowledge, I think, of what UW was and is. But really it was simple. You want to go to a place where you can win a national championship and sustain success if you're going to work 18 or 19 hours a day. And that's really, there's probably about 12 schools in the country that can do that.
And there's a 12-team playoff, right? And there's a 12-team playoff now, Jedd. There's a
12-team playoff, and I recognize that there's going to be a little bit of a bump in the road, in terms of you lose your coach, 25 guys go in the portal. You got 10 guys going into the NFL. I think we had 49 scholarship players in our first team meeting. So there's some things that we're going to have to work through, but you're working through it at Washington. And you're working through it at a place where you walk into a building and you're wearing the W, and people recognize that every player here is going to be treated as an A-plus player. You're going to be in the greatest community, the greatest city. And, with all the Fortune 500 companies and everything that goes on in college football. And then on top of that, we're going to invest in our players. And that's one of my biggest messages is, you're going to have the best nutrition. You're going to have the best weight room. You're going to have the best medical staff. I don't really care about some of the other stuff, but anything that touches a player is going to be the top of the food chain.
Talking to Jedd Fisch, new head coach of the Washington Huskies here on Brock and Salk Sports on 710. Can you tell me a little bit or help me understand recruiting in today's day and age and how it's changed? Because it dawns on me that to recruit high school kids and bring them into your program means that if they have to sit for any amount of time, there's a decent chance that they'll go somewhere else. Are you almost better off spending more time on the portal and using all of the schools that aren't in those two conferences you just mentioned more like farm systems for your school than going out and looking at the high school students that way?
Yeah, I have a hard time with that.
Sure.
Doing it that way. I think it's an opportunity that we have that I've coached and other members of our staff have coached in the NFL. And the teams in the NFL that are most successful are the teams that build it through the draft and use free agency to supplement their roster. I want to build it through high school recruiting. To do that, you have to have a little bit of patience and know that you have to develop some players and then play some young players and deal with some mistakes. But once you get that first recruiting class, and I challenged our staff, I said, I want the University of Washington's class of 2025 to be the best recruiting class Washington's ever had. Historically, the best class. So to do that, we've got to, for the next 365 days, be on overdrive. Once we get that done, we're going to play freshmen. And once you play freshmen and you show high school kids you'll play freshmen, more high school kids will come. And once you play freshmen, your sophomores and juniors, like what happened at Arizona, become the teams that can win 10 games after. We went to Arizona on a 12-game losing streak, and we left Arizona on a 7-game winning streak. And in 3 years, and a lot of it came down to played freshmen the second year, so the sophomores were winning. So that's our strategy. We tell our kids all the time, you want to be in the NFL, come here. You want to run an NFL offense, come here. And we're going to go hire a defensive coordinator that's going to run an NFL defense, and we're going to tell them all, if you like what you see on Sunday, come here on Saturday and get ready for it.
So you and Coach Macdonald are fighting over NFL personnel right now. Are
we
you?
Are. That's actually a fact.
You have any sense of timing of when some of that could come together? I know the whole offensive side came with you and is all set. Any semblance of where that's going defensively?
Yeah, I brought 2 of our 5 defensive coaches. I brought all of our offensive coaches, our whole strength staff, recruiting department, and support staff. And we got 3 defensive spots open. My goal is to have them closed by Monday. We're pretty close. We're pretty much down the line with about our defensive coordinator candidates. Once we get that done, everything else should fall into place pretty quick. But I was pretty adamant about what I wanted, and I wasn't just going to go hire someone or someone that I wasn't familiar with, and or someone that wasn't going to do what we wanted, which was you better run an NFL defense. And, we were very adamant about what we do on offense with, we run what Sean and Kyle and those guys do offensively, and defensively. I want to see kind of take that approach like Michigan and UCLA and Notre Dame and some of the top guys that have hired NFL coaches in there are 4 of the top 10 defenses, 3 of the top 10 defenses.
I got 2 last questions for you, Jedd, here over the last couple minutes, and sure do appreciate the time and hope this is the first of a few of these, man. It's fun to catch up with you. Because of what you referenced with 49 scholarship players in your first team meeting, will that impact and influence spring ball? Will you wait? Will you try to work around the portal knowing that there's going to have to be some more influx of some players through that portal in the spring?
Yeah, I petitioned the NCAA to start spring ball 15 days before training camp. And I didn't win. I didn't win that idea, but they kind of looked at me because we're going to need the April portal. We're going to need to fill some gaps. I think we're now in the 60s. We had about 10 guys come back that were in the portal. That went to the portal and then decided they want to come be a part of. Stay with us, which was great. And then we had about another 10 guys that have committed to us. From other programs that have been in the head coach portal. But outside of that, we probably still need about 15 spots filled. And we're going to push spring ball as late as we can push it. But in the same token, I know that training camp, these guys better be ready for quite a camp because we're going to have to go on overdrive to teach these kids what we want to get done.
All right, I'll ask you a weird question to finish it up here. I'm looking at all your coaching stops right? I mean, growing up in New Jersey, you go to Florida, and then New Jersey Red Dogs, Florida, Houston, Baltimore, Denver, Minnesota, Seattle, Miami, Jacksonville, Michigan, Ann Arbor, UCLA, Westwood, staying in LA, New England, Arizona, Tucson, and now back to Seattle. In all of those stops, what was the best and worst house that you lived in?
I'd say the best house we lived in was the smallest house we lived in, which was the one right in Hermosa Beach.
Oh, yeah.
It was about 1,400 square feet. It cost $1 gazillion a month to rent. And we got to see the ocean if I, peeked my head around, stretched my neck a little bit before I walked outside. But every day we were on a walk street where there was no cars, and it was unbelievable.
Spend your nights at Sharky's. I get it. Some late nights at Sharky's. I understand the Hermosa Beach scene. Okay, good. So that's one.
Okay,
that's the best.
One?
Yeah.
Okay, the worst one. My fraternity house in Gainesville. That falls under the worst house.
This is fun, Coach. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming on here. And as Brock said, yes, hopefully we get to do this a whole lot more. This was a lot of fun, and we'll look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Sure, let's do it again.
All right,
Talk to you soon. See you
Thanks,
guys.
Jedd.
There you go. There's Coach Jedd Fisch of the Washington Huskies.
Wow.
Well, wow. What do you mean, wow?
I knew you would like that. I can just tell with